link on the 1-800.com Twitter feed. He's Mike Golick Jr. I'm Jason Fitz. We're in for the guys. They gave us the second day at the big boy table. This is good, right?
Yep, 4th of July holiday. Dad's probably already lighting off fireworks somewhere. Greenie is probably as far away from the fireworks action as possible, and we're right here.
Now, is that a morning firework thing? Does that work?
It can.
You're bringing morning fireworks with the shirt. Let's face it, social media yesterday did not like my plaid shirt, which, by the way, I still stand by. I was still happy with that shirt, but they're going to love that. See, you can get away with that. I can't get away with that.
It's a better shirt.
It's
an infinitely better shirt. Our ESPN2 audience is getting a treat. Anyone who might be a Yankees fan may recognize this. Aaron Judge, I think, made this shirt pretty famous at this point. We've got the rest of the staff here kind of decked out in that, too. Hembo's rocking the shirt with me. We got a perfect match on that. Everyone has drawn their line. Travis over here rocking a variation of the shirt. They've all drawn the line in the sand of Team Golick for our donut eating contest today.
And that's a fair point. The shirt for you guys on radio is a Sandlot-inspired shirt with a hot dog, s'mores, baseball, and
Porter, the great Hambino.
Yeah, Porter. Sorry. I did
See
not
Sandlot for me one time, Fitz.
I've seen it. It just doesn't, it doesn't resonate.
It really seems like you've seen it.
I have America Chucks on. Does that count for 4th of July?
You know what? That does count. And a happy 4th of July to everyone who's listening. We hope you're enjoying your long weekend, the extended day off right here. Maybe you get into some festivities today. We're going to get into it a little bit, by the way. 4th of July is this awesome outlier of a holiday. Every holiday pairs drinking with something. This is the only one that pairs drinking with explosives. And so that's why we have to put out 4th of July disclaimers and say things like, stay safe this 4th of July. Be good. Don't light off fireworks in your hand. Don't light them off near your car. Don't light them off under a closed enclosure. I guess that's redundant, but Don't do it there either. Just light them off outside. Probably have your dad do it if you're a small child, and stay safe. Have fun. It's a great holiday.
You just mentioned your dad does it, but you're not a small child, so be safe, Golick, because I'm not sure the Golick family, is ready for all that drinking and danger.
Yeah, no, I'll let you know why my dad almost ended up like Tony Stark in a little bit.
Oh, this I cannot wait for. But before we get there, let's go ahead and go off the top.
Off the top.
The Warriors and Kevin Durant have agreed on a 2-year, $53 million deal with a player option in the second year. Durant will reportedly make $25 million next season.
Yeah, and we'll get into a lot of the Kevin Durant conversation this morning, but worth noting just in the Warriors, the broader sense for them, since free agency started Saturday morning, they've committed more than $328 million to 5 players. Whew. That's how you win.
Off the top.
The 2017 Home Run Derby is set. Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, Charlie Blackmon, Mike Moustakas were announced Monday, joining Giancarlo Stanton, Cody Bellinger, Justin Bour, and Miguel Sano in the field. With an average age of 26.6, this is the second youngest Home Run Derby field ever and the youngest since 1990.
Love this. None of the 8 players in this year's field were alive when the Home Run Derby started. In 1985. You've got I think this will be the 3rd time that 2 rookies in Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger have participated in the Home Run Derby. It was 1986, the second year of the Derby, and then in 2015.
Should be pointed, you weren't alive in 1985, were you?
No, I was also not alive for that Derby.
Off the top.
Clayton Kershaw and the first-place Dodgers, they begin a 3-game series against the second-place Diamondbacks Tuesdays. These teams have 2 of the 3 best records in baseball this season. They rank 1-2 in win percentage since the start of June.
A lot on the line. Arizona hasn't won the season series against the Dodgers since 2013, and it's just 17-30 against LA in the previous 3 years. So a lot of history not on the side of the D-backs in this one.
Off the top.
Getting to a little tennis action. The first round of Wimbledon continues Tuesday as Roger Federer begins his quest for his 8th Wimbledon title, which would break the men's record he shares with Pete Sampras and William Renshaw.
You like America, Fitz?
I love America.
I like America. It's July 4th. We all love America today. And Americans have a chance to make history at Wimbledon today. They went 7-1 on Monday for an .875 win percentage. And with another good day on Tuesday, the Americans could challenge the open-era record for the best win percentage in the first round at Wimbledon. So go ahead, get it done today.
You delivered that with such pride. I kind of wanted America the Beautiful to be humming underneath you.
Would have been nice if we got a fireworks show in here. I don't know if that's probably safe or legal either, but I'm willing to push the boundaries on that one. We got a lot of space in here.
Your shirt's already the firework.
Baby, you're a firework.
Off the top.
Speaking of fireworks, there's always fireworks at the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. It takes place live at noon Eastern today on ESPN2.
Joey Chestnut consumed 70 hot dogs in last year's event, breaking his own record. How many times has he done that now? That was the fourth time he had broken his own record. Joey Chestnut has the top 5 spots on the all-time hot dog leaderboard. It's like a bad arcade game score list when you just see the same initials over and over again. It is Chestnut just one-upping everyone on earth when it comes to eating hot dogs. I said he's the most important American athlete we have because the success or failure, the happiness or sadness of a nation on its birthday all hinge on him.
When you go to the arcade and you pull up the game and you see like the same name 52 times, is there respect there or is there?
Well, I think it's intimidation. It's letting everyone know not only have I put a lot of time and quarters into this, but I am extremely skilled at this game. And Joey Chestnut's put a lot of time, a lot of whatever the version of quarters are for this situation, I guess would be actual paper money, and a lot of effort, and he is great at it. He's the greatest eater we've ever seen.
Shameless plug, by the way. We'll be channeling our inner Joey Chestnut later today because I challenged you like a man yesterday to a donut eating contest. More for quantity, but it's going to be for time, and I'm not scared. I haven't trained at all for this, but later we are going to go
You hear the
at
excuses
it.
already starting?
No. I'm setting up the platform for why my upset may be the single greatest moment in 4th of July history. That's what I'm setting up.
Oof. It's a bull. You better be able to cash that one. You're writing a lot of big checks right now, and I have a feeling they are all going to bounce.
So let's get into big checks that won't bounce. Golden State, as you heard, and off the top, Kevin Durant, they agree on a 2-year, $53 million deal. Player option in the second deal. Durant makes $25 million next season. That sounds like a lot of money. But here's what's significant about that signing. It's about $9 million less than the max that he could have secured from the Warriors, and it is less than he made this season. So you go around, you join a super team, you become the finals MVP, you accomplish everything you set out for, and you take a pay cut. It was staggering news when we all heard it.
Well, it's only in the world of sports can we pull this off in this day and age, where we were told all along Kevin Durant was going to take less.
Yeah, but
we knew all along Kevin Durant was going to take less. And then now he comes out and actually takes less. And we go, oh, my God, did you hear? Kevin Durant took less.
That's a lot less, though. I mean, there's less and there's like there's a lot less.
Well, what did we expect it to be? When you hear that this guy, why he wanted to do this, it was so they could go out and do exactly what they did this offseason. Keep Andre Iguodala, keep Sean Livingston, because we're talking about it before the show, and almost everyone assumed one of those guys was going to get away. Someone was going to succumb to the idea that, I'm not like Kevin Durant and Steph, where I know my money is coming. It's going to be there. Everyone else, there's tiers in pro sports of athletes. There's the guys that can ring chase because they're chasing history. There's the guys that know they have their money coming. Blake Griffin's of the world just got paid with the Clippers. And then there's everyone else who is in a mad dash to try and get as much money as they can while they've got the chance. That limited window for earning potential in pro sports. And you figured Sean Livingston might fall into that category. Andre Iguodala has a little more of a background in this, but even still, if he had gone and taken some of that money that Sacramento was reportedly going to throw his way, wouldn't have blamed any of them.
I think when you ask how much less, when you think about $9 million less, I mean, yes, I realize for most of us it's like play money essentially. It's hard for anybody sitting here or anybody listening or anybody watching to really conceptualize what $35 million can look like. So it's easy to say, yeah, but he's still making 25. That's obviously. But there's a point when you are a competitive athlete at the highest level and you just leave $9 million on the table. That's a lot less. I mean, that's essentially a third of your contract. So you're coming off it wasn't even an adjustment year. You're coming off a year where you made an epic team better and you got them to the finals. You got them over the hump and you got the finals MVP. You accomplished everything that was laid out in front of you, and then you take a third pay cut? I mean, that's substantial.
We've also seen this before, though, and this is why people should honestly, if you're looking for a reason to be afraid of what Golden State represents, be afraid because of this, because they're starting to mimic what we've seen in the other great franchises and what it takes to be great over a long period of time. They're going to draw a lot of comparisons in the basketball world of the San Antonio Spurs, where Tim Duncan, as he got along in his career, managed to take less and less and less, but I immediately thought of Tom Brady and the Patriots. Tom Brady has been taking almost half his worth, what feels like for years now, in order to give a sport that's strapped much more by the salary cap and by the fact that their top players can make their full market value. And so when that guy goes out there and gives that team flexibility every year in a sport with way more variables, we've seen the sustained run of excellence that they've been able to have. Now take a sport where there's 5 guys on the court and you know that you've got 4 of those best guys already on your team, that's dangerous.
You're listening to Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. He's Mike Golick Jr. I'm Jason Fitz, sitting in for the guys. At $25 million, Kevin Durant is scheduled to be the 14th highest paid player in the NBA this season. I mean, that's a big number, 14th. I mean, that's a low number for somebody of his status, of his stature. And if you're one of the many people that want to hop on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed and blow us both up for talking about millionaires and their pay cuts, again, I come to the fact that the job market is what the job market is. And their job market allows for him to make a certain amount of money. Walking away from a third of it, you're right, Tom Brady, a very good comparison in that. Our own Chris Haynes broke the story yesterday. I want you to hear from him. He's going to join us next, but here's what he had to say yesterday about it.
That is a selfless act. A guy who's coming off of winning the finals, MVP, coming back and taking about $9 million less than what his max is. He's doing that to be able to have the Warriors go out there and have enough room to be able to bring somebody else in via free agency. And I was also told that part of that 2-year deal, the second year, is a player option in which he would likely, as of right now, decline that player option, do it again, and then the following year, he will qualify for the super max. Now, what that means right now for the Warriors, look, you got a guy that's willing to make sure this core sticks together. He declined his option in the first place last month, which allowed the Warriors to retain the bird rights to Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala. And so now you see how they were able to get paid, and Durant is still doing that. Man, I've never seen anything like this. When I got the word this was going down, I was like, what? Excuse me, how much for Durant? We talking Durant here? And I'm surprised. I think like everybody else is.
That's Chris Haynes talking about that. Chris, Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Here's our guest list for today, by the way. Chris Haynes going to join us at 7:30. Antonio Davis at 8:30. Brian Windhorst at 9. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. If you miss any of those guests, you can listen to all 4 hours of Mike and Mike on demand in the ESPN app. So this raises a great question about Kevin Durant, because a year ago, he was the biggest villain in the NBA. I mean, almost a year ago today, he became the villain of the NBA. Today, he becomes the hero, essentially, for agreeing to take less money. Does this, for most of the NBA fans, people watching it, in your mind, does this sort of spin his image back around?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that's going to do that is time, because as you pointed out yesterday in a different discussion, we lose context as we go further down the line. And so while some people might be able to point back to this, the people who live through it, everyone else is just going to look back and say Kevin Durant, X-time champion, however many championships they end up with here in Golden State for him in his career. That's the only thing that changes the dialogue around Kevin Durant, because think about the crowd that was criticizing him to begin with. People that are basically just looking for reasons to hate on these guys being able to make the decisions that they want. So they really think they're going to buy into the altruism of a guy who's going to make $25 million just because he gave up 9 of those?
And that's a fair point, but what does this say for Kevin Durant? Does this just mean he's in a different mental state in your mind than he was a year ago? Because he had opportunity to stay in Oklahoma City, chose not to, chose to go and play, as we said yesterday, with his friends. So he goes to play with his friends. Now they win a championship. They're on fire. Some would argue that if Kevin had stayed where he was, that maybe Oklahoma City could have put pieces around him to contend. So he wasn't willing to do that. He wasn't even willing to stay in Oklahoma City. Now not only is he willing to be a teammate and stay in Golden State, obviously, which we expected, he's willing to take less money to do that. That's significant to me. That says something about what's happening at Golden State that he didn't feel could happen at Oklahoma City.
Well, it is, and think about what we've heard all NBA offseason in regards to other free agents, whether it's Paul George or Gordon Hayward, these teams talking about, specifically with Paul George, though, showing him their culture inside the locker room to convince him that maybe, you know what, next summer you don't need to go in LA. We've got it pretty good here. You should stick around with us. Kevin Durant could have gone there, grabbed one ring, and said, all right, I'm good. I'm going to go get paid elsewhere, and then I can start my legacy, sort of like LeBron James did, how that Cleveland championship meant more. And Kevin Durant could have gone somewhere and said, I'm going to be that solo act now that I know the drill, and do that. But he said, no. Look what I found here. We have a chance to create something the likes of which the league's never seen if we keep this thing together. And he put that value over anything else in this situation. And to some level, that deserves absolutely to be commended.
He's Mike Golick Jr. I'm Jason Fitz sitting in for the guys. It's a July 4th doubleheader. Tune in today. The Yankees host the Blue Jays, followed by the Red Sox at Rangers, presented by Sprint, ExxonMobil, and KFC. Coverage begins at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. You mentioned Tom Brady earlier. Interesting career earnings for Tom Brady, $196 million. Career earnings for Peyton Manning, $249 million. That's a substantial difference when you talk about leaving money on the table.
Yeah, for those top-end guys that you all assume are going to push the market and set the price for everyone else and do all this. And listen, that's between two all-time greats. Like, that's the difference between Peyton Manning's 2 Super Bowls and just the fact that Tom Brady happens to have 5 now, among a number of other things. This isn't the only factor, but it's always been one of the contributors. And that sets a kind of a message down to everyone else. Like, oh, the best guy we have, the guy that in your case in Durant was just your finals MVP, is willing to do this. What am I willing to do for this team now?
Well, you talk about that, and Tom Brady never, by the way, he's never been the highest paid quarterback in the NFL in any given season. He's praised for it. And then you talk about notable NBA players that regularly have taken less money. Tim Duncan. I mean, Tim Duncan is sort of a Superman to so many people. Dirk Nowitzki, they love him, right? But then you turn around and you say Kevin Durant, you don't get that same love. At some point, you have to look at it and say whether or not you love the decision that got him there. Whether or not you love how he got there, he got there, and now that he is there, he's doing everything sort of the right way. He's doing everything that we've praised other athletes for doing.
All the rest of those guys you mentioned, though, are homegrown talents, and there's just nothing like loving your own home cooking the way people do with those athletes there. And worth noting that all the rest of those guys, there's the sort of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, because all of those guys, Dirk got his one. But he's kind of the exception because they've never really done a great job of putting stellar teammates around him the way that's happened for Tim Duncan and the way that happened for Dwayne Wade in Miami for a lot of years. So usually there's a reward. And with Kevin Durant here, you saw everyone they were able to keep intact. There's your reward.
Well, keeping everybody intact screams back to what's being created at Golden State, which is something we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about. But none of that is capable of happening. At some point, you have to look at what happened yesterday. Not just for the significance, because the other side of it is it's significant for Golden State. It's also significant for NBA players that are looking around. I mean, how do players, you've been in professional locker rooms, how do players feel when they see a guy that's leaving cash on the table? Because that's sort of that moment that, you know, if you and I are both walking into a room and, you know, Travis is having a hard time lifting a box and you go over and offer to help him, I feel bad if I didn't go over and offer to help him lift a box, you know? So now how is there this real life moment where everybody looks around and says, if he's going to leave money on the table, should we be leaving money on the table? I mean, it sets sort of an interesting conversation precedent for players, too.
I don't think, because we talked about before, everyone's in a different position. Kevin Durant's in a position where he believes he can leave money on the table because he knows he's still going to have a chance to make plenty of it later. He's made a bunch already. He put it off for a year, and that's absolutely, like I said, worth a round of applause for him. But the rest of these guys, they all are in a position where they're in more of that cash grab mode for a lot of guys. And so it makes you say in other ways, all right, he's willing to do that. We got to double down this effort. To that point, he invested in us. Let's invest back in this process. But league-wide, when you talk about setting the market and things like that, I don't think guys pay attention to that nearly as much as people think. You're cognizant of it, but the top guys are still going to get paid what they're paid. Especially in the NBA where there are maximums, there are all these different things set in place to restrict how much you can make on the top end. That's much less of a concern in my mind.
But the two sides of that, I would say, is that one, NBA contracts are guaranteed, and part of that is the constant conversation about injury.
Well, they're not guaranteed. I mean, they're guaranteed. They're not required to be guaranteed, but most of them are.
Most of them are guaranteed, and so part of the conversation about guaranteed contracts is about protection against injury. That's why players want it. So while we know that Durant can get paid in a couple of years, you can't, on the one hand, say we want guaranteed contracts for protection of injury and not say, hey, he's at least taking a risk on the other hand, because if he does sustain some sort of injury in the next couple of years, it could change his ability to get that max contract we've talked about. That's side number one. And side number two, if you're a GM for a pro team, aren't you walking in today to your guys, or even next summer, you're walking into your guys and saying, hey, what we really need from you today is a little bit of a Durant situation. We want to put more pieces around you because ultimately there isn't a hard cap in the NBA. They can go over the cap in the NBA. It's just a matter of a luxury tax. So what Kevin Durant really did was saved his team a luxury tax bill that allows them to stay together. But it's not like other sports where there's a hard cap and they have no choice.
No, and that's the point we kind of talked about yesterday on the other side is we're getting in the staring contest now where it's how much are owners willing to spend of their own money to do this. And yes, to your point, in a world where we're seeing more and more stars join up together, how many of them are going to be willing to make a sacrifice like this potentially going forward? We talked about it a lot with Chris Paul before the trade happened, but the idea that if he had, the options were sign in LA for that 5-year Supermax deal or leave for greener pastures and sign somewhere else, he would be leaving something like $50 million on the table or whatever it was. And that's the NBA world we're moving into.
Durant has the 5th highest salary among players to sign since free agency opened. All right, the 6th, J.J. Redick at $23 million. So superstar Durant making just $2 million more than J.J. Redick next year. Kind of crazy. Straight ahead, Durant said yes to his future with the Warriors. Someone said no to the Cavs and LeBron yesterday. You'll find out who.